Before we dive into tonight's haunting story, be sure to like and subscribe, or you may find yourself wondering if something is watching you. Hit that button if you dare. I always thought the phrase, "everything feels scarier after midnight," was just something people said to hype up ghost stories. But last year, I learned it can be terrifyingly true. It started on a quiet Thursday night in late November. The kind of cold where the silence outside your window hums louder than the heater in your walls. My roommate Julie was out of town for the weekend and I had the place to myself. Normally, I'd love that, but that night didn't feel normal. I was scrolling aimlessly through Reddit when I stumbled across a thread titled "Creepy Stories That Hit Different After Midnight." The timing made me smile. It was 12:41 a.m. I clicked it, thinking I'd get a few spooky chills and fall asleep, but the top comment stopped me. It was a short post, just one sentence. "If you're reading this right now, they already know." Weird, probably some ARG or troll, I figured. But the second I read that sentence, the heater cut out. Silence, like perfect silence. Even my fridge stopped humming. I glanced at my phone. The screen dimmed on its own, then went completely black. No matter how many times I pressed the button, it wouldn't turn on. I reached for the lamp on my nightstand. Now, I'm not someone who panics easily, but in that moment, the air changed. It felt, still, heavy, like the kind of air right before a tornado hit. But worse, like something invisible was standing right in the room with me, watching. I got up, heart pounding but trying to stay rational. I went to the breaker box in the hallway. Every switch was still on. That's when I heard it. 3 slow knocks. But they weren't coming from the door, they were coming from inside the apartment. I froze. I hadn't locked Julie's room, because I had no reason to go in there. She trusted me, and it felt like an invasion of privacy. But the knocks had come from behind her door, or the wall just beside it, or maybe even in the wall. I couldn't tell. My apartment is small, every sound echoes oddly, and I was standing dead in the middle of it. I backed up slowly toward the living room, toward the front door. That's when I noticed something else. The thermostat screen was flashing. It shouldn't have worked if the power was out, but there it was, blinking green. Only instead of a temperature, it said, 113, don't answer. I hadn't touched a thermostat in days. How could it display a message? At 1:13 a.m. exactly, I got a knock at the front door. This time, it was deliberate, calm, rhythmic. Someone knew I was inside. I don't know how long I stood there, staring at the wood grain of the door, expecting it to crash inward. But it never did. The knocking stopped after 7 knocks. Exactly 7. I called the police using my laptop, the only device that was still working. They showed up within 15 minutes. I felt like I had to be going insane trying to explain what happened. The cop, a young guy who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, said he didn't see anyone outside. No tracks in the snow on the porch. No one on the cameras from the apartment complex's entrance. He told me sometimes power flickers weird when the weather shifts, and left it at that. I didn't sleep that night, and I definitely didn't go back on Reddit. The next day I finally went into Julie's room just to rule out the knocking. Her window was slightly cracked, which didn't make sense in 20-degree weather. On her desk was a printed photo I had never seen before. It was a black and white snapshot of our living room, taken from outside the apartment, through the window at night. I flipped it over. Written in smeared pen were the words, "This was last week. You never noticed." I called Julie immediately. When she picked up, her voice was low and panicked. "Did you see it too?" she asked. Not what's wrong, just it." Turns out, she'd been having sleep paralysis episodes for months, hearing footsteps outside her door at night. She'd brushed it off as stress, but a few nights before she left, she said she woke up and saw someone sitting at the edge of her bed. She thought it was a dream until she found footprints on her carpet the next morning, bare feet, larger than hers. She hadn't told me because she didn't want to freak me out. We didn't sleep in the apartment again. A few weeks later, we moved out. Neither of us talked much about it after, almost like our brains couldn't make sense of it. But some nights, even now, I still find myself awake past midnight. I tell myself not to read anything creepy, not to go back to that thread. But one night I did, and I noticed something. The top comment was gone. In its place was a new one. Some stories hit different after midnight, but only if you leave the door unlocked. And below that, a comment from a deleted user. "You forgot to lock it again tonight." I ran to check the door. It was unlocked. This time the knock came at exactly 3 a.m. 3 knocks. From the window behind me, and in the dark reflection of the glass, I swear I saw someone smile. That was the last night I ever stayed alone again. And if you're reading this past midnight, check your windows, check your doors. Some stories aren't meant to be read after dark, not because they're fake, but because they're waiting for you. I used to work night shifts at a 24-hour gas station off Highway 17. Not a glamorous job, but it paid rent, and on most nights, it was boring enough to pass in a haze. The store was a dump flickering fluorescent lights, a camera system that barely worked, and a side lot filled with shadows you'd rather not stare into too long. Still, for years, nothing really happened, until the night I made the mistake of answering the knock. It was a Thursday, quiet, cold, and the kind of late where your mind starts playing tricks on you. Midnight had come and gone. I'd just finished stocking the beer fridge when I heard the knock. Not on the front door, no one knocks there. This knock came from the side door, the one marked employees only, the one that led to the alley behind the dumpster. 3 slow knocks, solid, deliberate. At first I thought it was one of the regulars messing with me. I opened the security monitor, black screen, then static. I tapped the camera feed. It blinked, glitched, and showed the alley just long enough for me to see something strange. There was someone standing just out of the frame, not clearly visible, just a portion of a shoulder. A pale one. Still another knock. I called out, "We're closed back there." No reply. I waited a minute, then went to the back door with the store's flashlight. I didn't open it time, not that stupid, but I looked through the tiny peephole, nobody there, or so I thought. I went back to the front, trying to shake the weirdness off, but I couldn't. The cameras stayed glitchy. The lights above the coffee machine began to hum louder than usual, and then I saw it. A figure walking across the lot, just past the window. But it wasn't walking, not really. It moved strangely, almost like it was floating an inch above the ground. It was tall, thin, wearing no visible clothes, and had this jerky, delayed movement, like it was lagging in real life. I blinked, gone. I told myself I was overtired. I pulled out my phone, but the time was stuck. 2:17 a.m. No signal, no Wi-Fi. Even the clock behind the counter had frozen. That's when the humming stopped. Silence. Every light in the store cut out. Then the knock came again. Only now it wasn't from the back door, it was from inside the bathroom. I stared at the door for what felt like forever. It had been locked all night. I hadn't seen anyone go in. I would have known. The bathroom has this awful buzzing fan that kicks on loud as hell every time the door opens, but the light under the crack was on, and it was flickering. I radioed the local sheriff's station. No response, so I did something I still regret. I knocked back 3 times. Immediately, the bathroom light shut off. The fan turned on, and then the door creaked open. No one came out. Nothing moved. But I swear to I could hear breathing. Right at the threshold. Shallow, wet, not human. I backed behind the counter, grabbed the emergency baseball bat we keep under the register, and waited. 10 minutes past 20. Nothing. So I called my boss, Tom. He didn't pick up. I texted him a photo of the open bathroom door. A minute later, he replied, "Don't talk to it. That's it. No context. Just don't talk to it." I was about to call 911 when I noticed something else. My phone's camera roll was filled with photos I hadn't taken. They were pictures of me, standing behind the counter, stocking shelves, eating a bag of chips, always at night, always through the front window, all time-stamped between 2:17 a.m. and 3 a.m. over the last 6 weeks. I nearly threw up. I deleted all of them and grabbed my keys. As I turned to leave, the automatic doors opened on their own. There was no one there, but the air changed. Cold, thick, like the world outside had stopped moving. I ran to my car, turned the ignition in, my heart was hammering. The only light was the flickering sign from the gas station roof. Then I saw it in the mirror, a figure standing at pump 3. It was closer now, still lagging, still floating. But this time, I saw its face. Or rather, I didn't. It was a void, like something had torn a hole in the world where a face should have been. It raised a hand, not to wave, to point at me. That was enough. I ran back into the store and locked the doors. I didn't care anymore. I hid in the supply room and waited for sunrise. I didn't sleep. I just listened. To the breathing on the other side of the door. It never stopped. Not until dawn. When the sun finally broke the horizon, everything returned to normal. Lights on, fridge humming, cameras working, even the clocks reset. I quit that day. Never went back. A week later, Tom was found dead inside the store during his shift. His phone was in his hand. The last thing he had typed out but never sent was a message to me. "It gets in if you answer." You did. So now, every night, I keep my windows locked, my doors chained, and no matter what happens, I never answer knocks after midnight, and neither should you. I don't usually tell people this story. Not because I am ashamed or afraid of how it sounds, though I probably should be, but because I still don't have an explanation. And every time I talk about it, I feel like I'm inviting it back. It started after my sister died. She passed unexpectedly. No foul play, no overdose, nothing that dramatic. Just didn't wake up one morning. She was 27, healthy. I'd talked to her the night before. We'd been planning our mother's birthday dinner, laughing, normal. Then the next day, gone. For the weeks that followed, I felt like I was sleepwalking through my own life, going to work, saying the right things, picking out flowers. But something in me had cracked, and no one seemed to notice it except my sister's cat, Lola. I took Lola in. She was a quiet, skinny thing, barely ever made a sound. But after the funeral, she started acting weird. Every night, after midnight, she'd go sit in front of my hallway closet, just sit there staring, not making a sound. And the thing is, that closet, it used to be hers. We shared an apartment back in college, and when she moved out, I kept the place. The hallway closet had been where she stored all her art supplies. Now it was just old coats and Christmas lights. The first night I noticed, I figured maybe Lola smelled her or remembered something. The second night, it was unnerving, but by the third night, when Lola started growling at the closed door, ears flattened, low and primal, I stopped thinking it was just grief. At 12:41 a.m. exactly, Lola stood up and ran from the door. Not walked, ran. She hid under my bed and refused to come out. The hallway light flickered and went out. The bulbs were new. That was the first time I heard it. A whisper, soft, wet, like someone trying to speak underwater. Just one word. Open. I stood frozen in the hallway. The only sound my own breathing and the pounding in my chest. I didn't move. Not for a full minute. Then I backed away slowly, locked myself in my bedroom, and didn't sleep until the sun came up. The next morning, I checked the closet. Nothing inside. But there was one thing out of place. A single black charcoal pencil lying dead center on the closet floor. My sister used to draw with those. I hadn't seen one since college. I tried telling myself it must have rolled out of a box, but the boxes were sealed, taped shut. I checked. I told myself I'd imagined the whisper, that Lola was just traumatized from the move. That night, I didn't sleep in the bedroom. I stayed on the couch with all the lights on. At 12:41 a.m., every bulb in the living room dimmed at once. Then went off, one by one. Pop, 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 pop. The TV turned itself on, static. Then her voice, open the door. I ran. I left the apartment at 1 a.m., barefoot and shaking, keys still inside. I stayed with my cousin for 3 days, and when I returned, the door to the hallway closet was open. I know what you're thinking. Someone broke in. Or I forgot to lock it. Or I opened it in my sleep. But the building's cameras didn't show anyone entering or leaving, and I hadn't left the bedroom door unlocked either. Lola was still under the bed when I got back. She wouldn't come near me for days. I finally called a grief counselor, thinking maybe I was having some kind of psychotic break. But even after the therapy, the dreams kept coming. Always the same. I'm standing in front of the closet, the door is open, and my sister is inside. Not her now, her as a child. She's drawing, slowly, repetitively, with a black charcoal pencil on the inside of the closet wall. The same 3 words, over and over. Let me in. She turns to look at me, and her eyes are hollow, smiling, but it's not her smile. I wake up covered in sweat, every time. I finally moved out a few months later. I couldn't take it anymore. The landlord was pissed I broke my lease, but I didn't care. I left almost everything behind, including Lola. I know that sounds cruel, but she refused to leave the apartment. She would hiss, scratch, scream. The vet couldn't even sedate her. I went back once, just to see. A week after I left, the hallway closet door was wide open. Inside, every inch of the wall was covered in black scribbles. Thousands of them, layered and overlapping, all written in charcoal. The landlord claimed I did it before I left. He kept the deposit. I didn't argue. I never went back. A few months ago, I got a package with no return address. Inside was Lola's collar, and a drawing my sister's style. It showed me standing in front of a closet, face blank. Hollow-eyed underneath it were the words, "You opened the door. You can't close it now." It started with the baby monitor. I don't even have a kid. That's what made it so weird. My girlfriend and I had been house-sitting for her sister for the week. They were off in Costa Rica, sipping drinks while we looked after the place and their 6-month-old son, Theo. I wasn't thrilled about it. I work remote, and the idea of taking care of a baby in someone else's creaky old house didn't exactly sound like a vacation. But I liked the kid. Sweet, easy to calm, barely cried. The baby monitor was left on the nightstand beside our bed, a black, outdated thing with a grainy green screen and audio that cut in and out. I wish I'd just unplugged it. The first night was uneventful. Theo slept through with no fuss. I actually thought this'll be easier than I thought. But around 12:50 a.m. I was finishing up some editing on my laptop when the monitor lit up. Theo was asleep in his crib, still, but the monitor was picking up sound. Not crying, not cooing, just breathing. Rhythmic, too loud to be his, too slow. It didn't stop. I turned up the volume. Still breathing, and then, faintly, so faint, I thought maybe I imagined it. I heard a voice whisper something. One word. Colder. That was it. I stared at the screen, but the room looked the same. Theo still asleep. I chalked it up to interference. Old tech does that, right? Static, weird audio pickup. Maybe it grabs someone talking outside, but we're in a gated suburb. No neighbors within 30 feet. Everyone already asleep. I muted the monitor and tried not to overthink it. The next night, it happened again. 12:48 a.m. Breathing. Heavier this time. I watched the screen. The image flickered like it was buffering. That same slow, wet breath came through. Then a whisper again. This time almost. I bolted up and went straight to Theo's room. He was sleeping soundly. Nothing in the crib. Nothing near the window. Closet open, but empty. I felt stupid, but I couldn't explain the chills crawling up my spine. When I came back to the bedroom, the monitor had powered off on its own. The third night was the worst. I fell asleep around midnight, exhausted, but I woke up at 12:44 a.m. No alarm, no sound, just ... awake. The monitor was already on. Theo was sitting up in the crib, which was weird. He didn't usually do that without crying. He was staring at the camera. Not blinking, not smiling, not crying, just ... staring. And behind him, in the grainy night vision, was the unmistakable outline of a second figure. Tall, thin, standing still, just outside the crib's edge. Facing him, I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Then the figure leaned forward, slowly, its head lowering toward Theo like it was trying to whisper something. I ran, sprinting into his room, throwing the door open so hard it slammed into the wall, but no one was there. Theo was still lying down, asleep. The monitor in my hand still clutched so tight my knuckles were white showed something different. The crib empty, room dark, no baby. But Theo was right in front of me. Real, breathing. I turned the monitor off, took him out of the crib, and kept him with us the rest of the night. I didn't care. Something was wrong. I didn't sleep. The next morning I called my girlfriend's sister, asked if she'd ever had problems with the baby monitor. Her tone changed instantly. "You're not joking?" she asked. I told her everything. There was a long silence. Then she said, "We don't use that monitor anymore. We had a priest bless the house a few months ago. You weren't supposed to turn it on. We just left it there by accident." I nearly dropped the phone. Why? Her voice dropped to a whisper, like she was afraid to say it out loud. Because when Theo was born, I'd hear things on it. Voices. Names we didn't say. And sometimes he'd be standing in the crib, like someone had helped him up. But there was no one there. It always happened around the same time. After midnight, she paused, then said, "One night it said our names. Then it said Theo's. We unplugged it and threw it in the attic." It took me a full minute to respond, because I hadn't picked up the monitor from the attic. I found it already plugged in, neatly placed beside our bed. We left the next day. I didn't explain it to my girlfriend, just made something up about being creeped out by the house. She didn't press me. A few weeks after they returned, I got a package in the mail. No note, no return address. Inside was the baby monitor, and on the screen, frozen in green grain, Theo sitting in the crib, staring into the camera, and next to him, just barely visible in the darkness, a pale hand resting on the rail. I live alone in a one-bedroom apartment downtown. It's one of those old buildings they renovated just enough to make look vintage on listings, but really it creaks with every step. The pipes moan like they're in pain, and the walls are paper thin. Still, it was cheap, close to work, and I'd just gotten out of a breakup, so the solitude sounded like medicine. It wasn't. The first week went by fine. I settled in, unpacked, tried to pretend the silence didn't feel like it was pressing in on me. Then, late one night past midnight, noticed something odd. I was brushing my teeth when I saw movement in the mirror. Not behind me, in the mirror itself. It was subtle, like static, like watching an old analog TV screen, but through my own reflection. My face glitched, flickered for a split second, then returned to normal. I blinked, leaned in, nothing, must have been tired, I figured. Then it happened again the next night. Around the same time, 12:39 a.m. This time, it lasted longer. I was staring at myself, and my reflection didn't blink when I did. It just kept staring. I turned the light off, walked out of the bathroom, heart racing, sat on the couch, trying to calm down. Told myself it was the lighting. That old bathroom had one of those dim yellow bulbs, the kind that flickers a little even when it's not supposed to, but deep down, I didn't believe that. The next night, I decided to film it. I stood in front of the mirror at exactly 12:39 a.m. and hit record on my phone. I stared at myself, waiting, watching, and then I saw it. Not a glitch this time. My reflection ... smiled. I hadn't moved. I watched my own face stretch into a slow, unnatural grin, like something wearing my skin. Then it stopped, and stared, right at me. I dropped the phone and backed away. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed in the living room with the lights on, mirror door shut. The next morning, I checked the footage. It was corrupted, static, then a black screen, then a single frame, my face. But the eyes were black, and my mouth was open too wide, wider than should have been possible. There was no audio, and just a faint hum. That same day, I covered the bathroom mirror with a towel. I didn't care how crazy it seemed. I couldn't stand to look into it again. But that night, as I walked past the door, I heard something, whispering from behind the towel. My name, Eli. I froze. It whispered again, louder, "Let me see you." I slammed the door shut and locked it. Slept with headphones on, told myself I'd call the landlord the next day and ask for a new place. Mirror be damned, but that never happened, because the next night, it escalated. At 12:39 a.m. on the dot, every screen in my apartment turned on. Laptop, TV, microwave clock, phone, even though it was off, all displaying the same thing, a black screen, and then my face, smiling, not just smiling, and then a single word in white text. Soon, I ripped the towel off the bathroom mirror, half hoping it was all in my head. That confronting it would snap me out of the psychotic spiral I felt myself slipping into. But when I looked in the mirror, I wasn't there. Nothing was. Just the empty bathroom behind me. Then, slowly, something walked into the frame. It looked like me. Same clothes, same face, but wrong. It twitched as it moved. Head tilted just slightly. The smile never moved. It lifted a hand and knocked. I jumped as the real bathroom door behind me echoed the same knock 3 times. Knock, knock, knock. I ran. I slept in my car that night, parked 3 blocks away, staring at my dark apartment windows until the sky turned gray. The next day, I went back. Everything looked normal, except the bathroom mirror had fogged. I hadn't turned on the water. In the center of the glass, written in a perfect finger-drawn curve, was a message. "Now we've seen each other." I moved out the next morning, never looked back. Weeks later, I got a new apartment in a newer, brighter building. No creaks, no flickering lights, no mirrors I didn't buy myself. But last week, at exactly 12:39 a.m., my phone buzzed. No number, just a notification from the gallery app I hadn't used in days. New photos saved. I opened it. It was a mirror selfie, taken in a bathroom I didn't recognize, except the reflection was me, standing still, grinning wide. But I wasn't holding the phone, and I never pressed capture. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Each of your stories adds another layer to our growing community of horror enthusiasts. And if you think someone else might enjoy a good scare, do not forget to share this video with them. Stay tuned for more spine-chilling stories, and remember, sometimes the scariest tales are the ones that could happen to any of us. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you in the next video if you dare.